Monitor stakeholder engagement. It's our final process in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Aren't you proud of yourself? I know we've still got the closing aspects on projects, but if you're literally going through the PMBOK Guide, this is the final process you hit. So a tip of the hat to you. In Monitor Stakeholder Engagement, our main goal is to check the plan for how to engage stakeholders and make sure that the plan is working. Make sure that we are truly engaging stakeholders as promised. And if that is not being done well, we need to modify the plan as needed. So we want our stakeholders to be engaged. So once again, our main goal is monitoring stakeholder engagement and taking any necessary corrective action if desired results aren't being achieved. In other words, if the plan is broke, fix it. Do something different. Find out what you can do differently. Our inputs here, 1, the project management plan, because it contains the stakeholder engagement plan, of course. It also contains the communications management plan and the resource management plan. And we could argue all sorts of reasons as to why these are inputs. So don't get hung up on PMI's blurb about why these are inputs. Try to understand it from various angles, because on the exam you could come across some really creative questions, I tell you. So don't just learn it like a robot. Ask yourself why. Okay, our next input here is project documents. Again, all manner of documents, the issue log, the lessons learned register, but the big one that you expect to see here is last process, folks. Give it to me, give it to me. The last one, right? I expect good output from you. I'm talking about the stakeholder register, of course, and we could have the risk register, the lessons learned register, and other things. Okay, remember what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is to establish if our stakeholder engagement plan is working. Okay, so lessons learned from previous phases, it could help. From earlier on in the project, it could help here. From lessons learned, we might be able to see that a plan is not working. We may also, in the risk register, be able to identify risks that alludes to a stakeholder being disengaged. Your risk register could show when an objective is at risk because a stakeholder is not engaged to give you the needed support. So always think, why is this an input? Okay? Our next input is a regular one that appears throughout monitoring and controlling, outside of integration, of course. Let's hear it from you. Which input do you see in every monitoring and controlling process outside of those in integration? Let's have it. This is a collection time, folks. It's work performance data. We always have that as an input to processes in monitoring and controlling outside of integration. WPD, we should know that by now, okay? So work performance data is our next input. After that, we have enterprise environmental factors, for obvious reasons, and organizational process assets. Let's not even talk about that. Want to get this over and done with so that you could do some tests? Yeah? Tools and techniques here. Data analysis. Under data analysis, we're thinking of alternatives analysis, evaluating alternatives to get desired results from stakeholders. We also have root cause analysis, trying to find the root cause for disengagement of stakeholders. We also have stakeholder analysis. You also want to do a stakeholder analysis to determine the position of stakeholders. Do you know that for those stakeholders where you're not getting a desired effect, maybe your stakeholder analysis is faulty? Maybe these folks don't even need to be as engaged as you think. Do a stakeholder analysis. Maybe they need to be more engaged than they are engaged currently. Maybe they're right where they need to be, okay? The next tool and technique is decision making. We have the lofty sounding multi criteria decision analysis, which is just weighing the different criteria for stakeholder engagement among the team members. We could also use voting. Voting can be used to select the best response for there being a variance between the current stakeholder engagement and the desired level of stakeholder engagement in the stakeholder engagement plan. The next tool and technique is data representation. Think about your stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. We've talked about that a few times. The next tool and technique is communication skills. Here, we're very interested in feedback to make sure that the information sent to stakeholders is understood. I often tell people to use what I call a temperature gauge. A temperature gauge will gauge your stakeholders' feelings and comfort levels about the project. What do they think about the project manager? What do they think about how they are being engaged? What do they think about the current reports and results? Temperature gauge. Now, PMI doesn't call it that, but they call it feedback. I call it a temperature gauge. You could also use presentations as a way of communicating to provide clear information to stakeholders. Our next tool and technique is interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills here, active listening. You definitely can do with some active listening when it comes to stakeholders sharing their true feelings about a project. Active listening, cultural awareness, leadership, networking, and political awareness are definitely nice to haves when it comes to interpersonal and team skills. Lastly, we have meetings, the vehicle with which we meet and discuss stakeholder engagement, where it needs to be, where it currently is, and where we develop strategies. Let's take a look at our outputs. First output is work performance information. Needs no introduction, right? You see it as an output of all of those monitoring and controlling processes outside of integration. What you expect to see as WPI here are things such as the current level of project support or stakeholder engagement compared to the desired level of project support or engagement. We could use the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix or the stakeholder cube. We could also get from monitor stakeholder engagement as other monitoring and controlling processes, change request. And this could be a request to change something, for example, in the stakeholder engagement plan. Of course, all of these change requests need to go through the perform integrated change control process. We also have, as an output, project management plan updates. For obvious reasons, we may be updating our stakeholder engagement plan. Maybe it needs to change along with the communications management plan because stakeholders are not as engaged as they need to be. You might even have some eager beavers who are too engaged. We could also have the resource management plan here. Team responsibilities for stakeholder engagement activities could be updated. Our final output, project documents updates. Right off the bat, boom, what would you expect? Tell me right now. Hey, this is our last output in the PMBOK guide. I demand answers, folks. Tell me, project documents updates. Name one that you expect to see. Great job, you got it. The stakeholder register, of course. The risk register, the lessons learned register, the issue log could also be updated. Okay? And that concludes our review of monitor stakeholder engagement. And that, folks, is our final process. I doff my hat to you, and I give you a huge thumbs up. Stick around, we've still got a few more things to talk about, and that will conclude our course. Thank you for your audience so far, and see you in the next few videos. Woohoo! Dun 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 dun. Wow, I got this done, buddy.